Welcome, everyone. I'm doing a webinar today, which is a hands-on introduction to UI design with wireframes. We're trying something different. As you know, when you registered for the webinar, I presented you with the opportunity to download an exercise file and practice UI design on this file. And then I asked you to submit them to me, and I'm going to critique them as part of the webinar. The reason why I do this is actually I teach a course in Introduction to UI Design, and this is one of the first exercises I do with new UI design students. I think it's a great way to just sort of dive right in and learn UI design. And what I found is that you can do this with high fidelity design tools, but you can also do the same with wireframes, and I think it's great. So the idea is I'm going to cover some of the lecture material, as I would maybe, I guess, call it. And then I'm going to critique the submissions and make changes in real time so you can see, how I would update the design to achieve these goals. The reason why I'm doing this is because this is how I learned UI design the best. I would create design concepts as a junior designer, especially when I transitioned from graphic design to product design. So I would create designs and then I would show them to my design director and I would receive feedback. And I would have a one-on-one meeting with them and they would show me things that they would do. Like I would do this, I would move that there. And enough of that practice really leveled up my skills as a UI designer. So I'm hoping I can recreate that a little bit for you today. So let's get going. As you know, we always have our privacy statement if you've been to any of our webinars. We're really big on privacy at Balsamiq. So we are recording this. We will post it to YouTube and our YouTube channel and our website. None of your personal information is shared unless if you are interacting with us and posting messages. And even then, I think we can probably hide it. You can ask questions anonymously if you don't want to share your name with other attendees. So today what we're going to cover is a quick overview of my favorite UI design principles, and then we're going to review the exercise in your submissions. And if we have time, we can review some of the designs that I made, but as I did a little practice run earlier, I spend a lot of time on your submissions. Thankfully, I got a good amount. So I also wanted to mention that we're writing a book. A lot of the content about these principles I'm going to talk about are coming from content that we wrote for our book called Wireframing. We're partnering with the publisher A Book Apart. There's 3 of us that work at Balsamiq that are writing it. It's been a year into the process and it's been going great. We're probably a few months away from releasing it, but we're going to start slowly announcing more and more information. So please be on the lookout. I really like A Book Apart. They're a great publisher. They have over 40 books on design topics, on coding topics, on content. They just have a fantastic lineup of books. And if you're looking to learn about really anything about digital product design, go check them out. And then ours will be there soon, and I can't wait to get it into your hands and see what you all think. So I'm just going to dive right into the content. I have about 10-15 minutes of this explaining my high-level principles. I have talked about this a few times, and I have articles about it. So I am using some new imagery and new examples that some of them that we're using for the book. So the first high-level principle, is mastering visual hierarchy. I talk about this a lot, but if you're new to visual design, you want to be good at UI design for software, understanding visual hierarchy is going to really level up your design. So I think this is really important. A clear visual hierarchy guides the eye to the most important elements on the page. It can be created through variations in color, contrast, scale, and grouping. And those are the designs, those are the principles I'm going to use while I am critiquing your submissions and making changes. I mess a lot with color and contrast to play with visual hierarchy. Scale and grouping is just as important. Adding white space, proportions. All of these things lead to a much cleaner, easier to use design. This is actually a graphic that we're going to likely have in the book, but it's something that I use in the article, and it's something that's important to understand where your user will focus their attention and the steps in which they'll focus their attention. I really like this, though. I've seen this graphic used on the internet a lot, and it's a great way to explain what we're doing. So when I talk about those different ways that you can apply hierarchy, these are some samples from the book. You may notice that big text first, but you'll probably also notice you might actually notice the button first, and that's intentional, right? The bright color, the contrast between the black and white layout of the page plus the purple button, it really draws your attention to what we want the user to do. We want them to sign up for whatever this is, right? The next big thing. So use color contrast to increase hierarchy. Another is a really simple one, which is just placement. If there's no other really dominant hierarchy, if you whatever you place at the top of the screen, no matter really the size, it'll be red first. Even though the text below at the bottom is a lot larger, when you start on the screen, you start at the top and then you work your way down. Another one is just adding white space. So if you give enough space around something, it's going to draw attention to it. And that's something that is typically not utilized enough in any sort of visual communication. So when I was creating this this new updated version of my talk about UI design principles, I was actually looking at this website. This is ESPN.com. And what I found was it's completely lacking hierarchy in my mind. My eye isn't drawn to one area. There's two large images that show up on my screen. There's also a call to action button. And it's all pretty vague. Like, what do you want me to do first? Like, where do you want me to focus my attention? So I think this is a great example of maybe not what not to do. And then I also frequent this website, so my apologies for always showing sports examples, but it's where I spend my time online, apparently. This is another website that I've been a member of for a while called The Athletic, and I think they do a fantastic job of designing hierarchy. So when I look at the screen, the first thing I see is this giant image of the baseball player with the headline, and then I slowly, like if I move my eye this way, I can scan these. These are the next biggest thing to me. And then if I further down. So it walks me through what they think is the most important, then next and next. And I think it's just really well done. One of the examples that we talk about in our book is Spotify. And all around, I think Spotify has fantastic product design. And just from the example of, sorry, just the example of hierarchy here, I think you can notice that the big play button is the primary action on the screen, and that it is the focus where, sorry, I just wanted to check my phone, make sure everything's working. Okay, so it's where you focus your attention first, and it's the most important thing for the user to do on this page is to play the album, right? And the next in the hierarchy is the album cover and the details, and then third would be the list of songs. And I think it's really obvious to me when I look at it what the hierarchy is, what is expected of me, what they want me to do. And then what I wanted to talk about is if you're looking at a design and you're trying to determine the hierarchy, the best way to do that is to do a squint test or a blur test. And I think when you blur this image, it's pretty obvious what, sorry, it's pretty obvious what what's number one, and then number two, and then three, and then even this is like outside. This would be 4 and 5. And I think the design of it is so good that even when you blur it, you can see what the hierarchy is. So I wanted to apply this to ESPN because I think it'll show you even more clearly where there's a lack of hierarchy. Like if I look at this, the red of the ESPN logo stands out a lot, the two giant images. There's just a lot going on and my eye doesn't have any place to land. Here, my eye lands here really quickly, right? Okay, so that was hierarchy. Now I want to talk about alignment, and part of alignment I talk about is organization. So I always say that alignment is a telling sign that your design has been crafted. So that means you're really considering aligning everything, placing it in the right spot, and thinking of the user and how they'll scan through your site. I really like the design of the Atlantic, not the Athletic, which I'll probably confuse later. But they do a really good job of aligning and organizing their content on their website. One of the things I talk about in my intro is that you want to align text with text and images with images when you can. It makes it easier for us to scan content if I can just say like, okay, I want to look at these. I'm going to scan these. These are separate, right? This images, I can scan across and read all of these headlines without having to be interrupted. It's really well done. And I think they continue this. If you scroll down the page of theatlantic.com, they have the same thing. These are the latest. I can scan and just read the headlines. When I'm glancing at the page, it makes it really easy for me to pick out specific areas. And I think they do a great job. You know who else does a great job is The Athletic. They also make it really easy. You know, scanning down text with text, images with images. These aren't really interplayed. See, they're like outside the line, so I can scan the text. I can scan all the way across. They do a great job of aligning everything. And now who doesn't do a great job is ESPN.com. My eye, if I'm just guiding my eye trying to read the main content, I go here, 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 break here, and it's pretty crazy. And I don't like it. I'm gonna actually do something really quick just so I don't miss it. Any tech issues? Okay. All right. So one of the ways that you can apply alignment, the most, I guess, best way, the one that's been developed the furthest is using a grid system. It started many years ago. This is an example of Swiss design right here. It's been popular since the 50s in graphic design, book publishing, poster design. And it's been carried over to web design. And a very common thing that we do is we use like 12-column grids to lay out web pages, especially information-heavy web pages. What I wanted to say is basically every framework that you use to develop a website. So, you know, Twitter, Bootstrap, there's Foundations, there's lots of these already developed foundations, frameworks, sorry, and they all include grids for this reason, because it makes it really easy to lay out text. So I wanted to demonstrate something to you, because a lot of times it's easy to see it on an example, but marketing sites always, it's easy to show a marketing site that has the use of a grid, right? But this is a pretty standard marketing site, you know, whatever the main header is, the hero area. You can even have designs in the hero area that follow these grids, and then these value propositions are a third of the screen. But what I always show people is that maybe not be as obvious is that a lot of software applications do too. So this is a wireframe of Spotify, and it also follows the grid system. This is the same 12-column grid system as this. So I go to Spotify.com, it looks like this, and I use Spotify, the web application, it looks like this. So alignment, that was that. Now we're going to quickly talk about clarity. Clarity means that the interface behaves predictably. It allows the user to feel comfortable and in control of the experience. I believe I took that right from the book. And what I think of clarity is you use visual hierarchy to show clarity. Alignment helps you show clarity, but also what content you have and what content you don't have, the words that you use on the screen. Content design is really important. So this is a great example from Nielsen Norman Group that I believe we're going to have in our book. What it talks about is not giving the user too much information that they're going to second guess what they have to do. Just make it really clear what they need to do and get done with the task they're trying to accomplish. One of the ways that we do this through design is something called progressive disclosure. So I was looking for a desk to rent. Right now I'm in my co-working space, and the site had designed cards that looked like this. There was a lot of content per card, plus a very bright call to action. And for me, what I was looking for was the name of the place, the cost, and probably the square footage of like the office space or whatever. And so having all this information, it made it difficult for me to scan a listing of 15 than it would be if we just did something like this. And I just need the highlights. I need to pick where I want to dive in and go from there. So this is called progressive disclosure. I can click on this and I would get this same view here. And then if I clicked on Hub 101, this one would close and it will allow me to focus on one at a time. That provides clarity for me. It allows me to easily scan and find what I need and then dive in from there. Here's a few other examples that I have in previous articles where clarity is provided by making it easy for me to understand what the primary and secondary actions are. A lot of times I've seen this a lot, I guess, excuse me, have done this with having too many buttons on the screen or too many primaries or things that may be mistaken as a primary button, and that just causes confusion. Using the proper primary and secondary make it very easy for me to glance at and know what I should do. Another one, this is another example, is making it very clear what action I'm about to take. So not only am I using the proper button styles, I'm using the proper text to explain what I need to do, what will happen when I click here. The example that I came up with going through some old slides was I thought Audible was really interesting because I signed up for Audible. I was really excited. It's easy to sign up. This is their homepage, or at least it was like a year ago. And the value proposition or whatever, plus the primary action button are very obvious. It's the most prominent thing on the page for me. It was easy to sign up, right? But when I wanted to cancel, they made it a lot less clear. They purposely used a primary action button to confuse me about canceling my membership. So this is an example of just simply not being clear, which drove me nuts. So that is the principles I wanted to cover. That's what I usually talk about with a beginning UI design student. So this is the example files that were in the exercise file. And right now, I purposely designed them to have all the content I wanted, but maybe not designed in a way that's easy for a user to consume, right? So this would be the home screen. This is all sort of based on Coinbase, if it's not obvious. I made this exercise when cryptocurrency wasn't completely crashing either. I'm sure it'll bounce back. We'll all be fine if you're an investor. I'm not really. But the idea of it is to have lots of different types of pieces of information, right? We have your balance. We have this data table of information that we want to scan. We also have another data table. And then we have sort of a news card design. We have two styles of news card. We also have a navigation system and a header and a search. So we have major components that are used throughout all different types of software and web and SaaS applications. So this is a great way to practice designing for all of these things and then applying them to these different pages. So if I look at this, I see like here there's a primary action button. It's really, really loud and screaming, but there's also these competing colors. Here we have basically similar buttons that are screaming out to us, plus the addition of a sub nav. And then here we have a news feed with more primary action buttons. So we kind of have a mess. So what I want to do is quickly show you what it looks like using the blur test. We have this massive button, and then we have this sort of massive information that there's no distinction between the two. Here it's pretty similar. You can even see in this blurry image that this is all crammed together and looking like one piece. So we should separate that. We don't need all these different action buttons. We could probably simplify. I am sort of solutioning as I look at these. And then same with here, we have lots of these little buttons that I don't know if they're really going to help us. So what I want to do now is pause. Okay, everything seems to be going okay here. And I'm going to start reviewing the submissions that were sent to me. So look at that. I already have them up. What I want to talk about, there was something, oh yeah. So what I wanted to mention is, yeah, I already talked about this is something that I've done in my UI design class. Okay, so we have some submissions. I can just kind of click through the ones that I got from the audience. Thank you for submitting. I really appreciate it. I think it's so interesting to see people's takes on these. I copied them from files into this, so it looks like I copied wrong. Some really cool stuff. Okay, so what I want to do is, and this is actually what I wrote in my little thing here, is what I like to do to explain how, like I talked about in the intro, is I like to take a look at everyone's work and then show how I would change it to push these principles even further. So this is a really good design. What I see when I look at it is there's still not a lot where my eye is drawn. I'm kind of need one place to focus. I need the hierarchy to be a little more obvious for me when I'm glancing at it. So if I look over here, I blurred it out. So you can see, again, this is primary, but there's no real like secondary place for me to focus. And I don't know if I really want this to be the primary. Actually, what I did do, was it here? I have some notes, but I think it was in a different file. Anyways, so when I look at these, I kind of want to make it so there's a place that I can focus first within the content, and then second and third. So what I'm thinking is the first thing I'm going to do is remove all these outlines. And I'm hoping you can see yeah, that looks big enough. Okay, so, okay, there was an overlay. I'll remove that. But I can remove all these borders really quick because they're drawing a lot of attention to me right now. And I don't really need that. I don't want any borders. Okay, so that's helpful. The next thing is sometimes if we want to draw attention, we can remove that. And this actually might need a border. Maybe what we'll do is change the color here. That might help. So now we have a separation between the navigation and the main content. So what I want is this to me is primary, and that's probably, this is secondary, third, and fourth. This is very bright, so I'll address that. But what I'm thinking is I want to make the page a little longer to give this top area some space. Oh, yeah, good. I had that in there so we can look at it. Okay. So I want some space here. I'm going to deselect these because I know I'm going to edit that. They all are the same size, and I don't want them to be. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, what did I do? I'm not going to blame myself. Whatever. Okay, so I feel like this size is a bit too big. It is more of a label of the section than it is anything else. Like this is the title of the page. I'm going to move that down later because this is sort of in the navigation area. So these all look like they're the same size, which is a great job by the designer, keeping everything consistent. But let's shrink it down to 20 for now. That seems to help recede it in the visual hierarchy. I want this to be really big because I just want to be able to come to this screen and be like, yeah, that's how much. I did make it a tongue-in-cheek by saying I only had 14 cents, but it's easier for you to just scan that and notice it. So let's make that big. I still want to align things just because, again, that shows that I'm paying attention and crafting it. But I might have to move this down. It needs some space. So we're going to use this like white space proximity, give it some room to breathe principle so that when I come to this screen, it's one of the first things I notice, right? Probably can drop down the opacity or just make it a lighter color to make this pop more. A lot of times when you're designing, you sort of interplay the opacities more than you're selecting a specific color. You're just saying, okay, these are way too bright. I'm going to make them low opacity. That automatically recedes it. I think the text on it needs to go back, but these white boxes aren't jumping in my face. I could probably actually just leave that. That's not a problem. But automatically that opens up this area to my eye. Like I automatically see that. I can do that for these two, no problem. I'll probably just do 50%. It's not bad. So to me that, and if I use like right now, this is just a wireframe, but if I use a specific typeface, I could probably really even push this further. This doesn't look great bold, but whatever typeface I use, I can really make these two numbers show up better. So I already like this a lot better. Some of the details that I would work into now, like if you just sent me this, I'd be like, this is pretty good, right? This is a lot easier for me to look at and notice the primary, secondary, third. But there's a few other things I would do because I don't think I want this here. I feel like I want this to be a global, I want it out of like this and into like the toolbar area. So I might swap that for that because I always think of like, I can kind of see this being a global thing where I would expect to see it in the top right corner just based off of like where I look for specific interactions, so like a login button or like my main primary. I could see it being up there. This is size, height 54. This is 43. Let's make them both 45. And then it doesn't have to be as wide now. It can probably be smaller, and maybe we're using this color and this green is different. So maybe changing the green a bit. This does have a lot of hierarchy to it because of the contrast, but it's not like, it's not screaming as much as that example of white and purple. So I think that's pretty good. I'm going to keep it a little monochromatic for this example. But to me, that helps a lot cleaning up the dashboard. I want this to be here, but I have to do a lot more work to do that. Because on my other pages, I have these, let's see if you can see this. I have these sub-navigations, and doing a sub-navigation here would probably change the design too significantly from page to page, and that would be confusing to me. That's like not clear. So I'm going to move that down. I'm also keeping an eye on the time because I don't want to go over. I guess I can keep that there, but I need to shift everything else. I'll give it some space. Let's see what happens. I need to work on my alignments, obviously. Someone's going to call me out on it if I don't call it out. That's better. I think I need to like resolve that more. But what I like about this is that I can take each of these pieces and build the other page very easily. This page is chart and data table, right? This is reoccurring. And then this page, it's taking the news card and just repeating it, right? With a sub-navigation. So it makes it really easy once you design this first page to take those design patterns and continue them over. So I'm just going to do a few quick things that I would do just to, again, heighten the hierarchy of certain content. So labels don't need to be very big because they're just labels, and you essentially read them once as a viewer, as a user, and that's it. For scanning purposes, numbers are typically right aligned, and the reason we do that is to easily scan larger and smaller numbers as far as I know. So I can sort of see the numbers change more easily. You know, these are all the same number, but if it was just 3456, I can kind of see that change in here. But overall, if you look at the difference between the original and this, which I can't show you now, I can show you here. The hierarchy is a lot different, right? There's a main area to look at. I still think there's some space here. It's easier to scan this content. I think this was a good job. Sorry. But so this would be an example of how I will show you as a new designer what to do. All these little details add up to a much better design. This really pushes the hierarchy. There's a lot of really good alignment already, but these extra little details help push the design forward, right? And looks even more professional. Okay. I'm going to move on. So I want to do probably one or two more. And it looks like there's no issues with text, so that's good. I know I copied this over and I messed this part up, so I'm going to fix it. And thank you again to everyone who submitted. And I would love everyone's feedback too. So tell me what you think when this is done. Email me. I will hopefully remember to say this again when it ends, but if you are watching this and you are inspired to take a shot at the exercise files and you want me to review them, please email me, or even better, contact me through Slack. I would do this all the time. What I do is I create a video just for you, and I will go through and make these changes. Now, if 200 people ask me to do that, I probably won't be able to, but if a handful, I have no problem. Okay, so I'm moving on to a new design, and this one's a lot different. This is pretty good. I really like it. I'll probably always find something to tweak, but if we think about the design of this, we still have these content, very obvious content blocks. I like how you put the titles outside of those blocks. It kind of does a good job of separating them better. This one's a tough one to really make changes to. I think the hierarchy is correct. So this is using like a toolbar. That's pretty cool. Okay, I'll talk about that one in a second. Also, I keep apparently accidentally zooming out and not meaning to. I love when I get a design and I'm not sure what to say. Okay. I mean, there's always these little details. I would align these to the right, which I'll show you. You could probably do something like that, but let's change these. Sorry, if you hear any extra noises, know that I'm sitting here with my daughter who was watching YouTube and talking to herself. That's pretty funny to me. I hope it's not bothering you. So, a very simple change is just making sure you can scan, like, numbers and figures are usually to the right. That's how charts are built. Other than that, I like this. I still don't know if I want this here, but it seems to work okay. I like this extra toolbar with just a plus button. Overall, this is a really good design. This is great. It's a nice change. Let's see how they apply it to the rest. Okay, so this is pretty good too, right? That's interesting. Look at that. This might sort of conflict. We have all these different call to actions, so I might actually just remove that because it's already there, or combine it. I like the idea of this being the primary color, action color, primary button color. But that means we have to sort of remove this from the side, because otherwise, again, you don't want to have conflicting primaries, right? This might not be bright enough. Is that too dark? No, that's definitely bright enough. And then instead of having two buttons, we can even just say trade, right? We have a trade there, I guess. Trade is the same, so I don't know. That would make a single button to do, because if I click buy or sell, it could be the very similar modal, not modem. But this is really nicely done. easy to look at. I can scan my balance. I can update the chart easily and then see. I don't know if we need this exactly, but I think this is really good. Now what I need to do though is take this and figure out if I can fit it here, right? Because I don't want to change one thing, change something on one screen and not change it on the other. And maybe this is how we allow the user to add and whatever, buy and sell crypto. This is pretty good. I like that this is aligned. One thing that you can do to keep the, this is not absolutely necessary, but to keep the scanning easier is to do something like that, which we saw on the examples that I showed earlier. This is a good way to treat this too. I'd probably just make this text smaller because the idea of putting text behind a color background, that contrast to me automatically means it's clickable. My mind says this would be clickable. Usually they're in the term, not in the term, but usually they're designed as like a tag or something like a category. And I would know that. So I don't need like, I don't know, I just can have it, the text be like even smaller, sort of recede in the background, just knowing that will call out, like, I won't even have to read it. I just know I click here and something will happen with this article. Okay, so I like that. I did that. And now I did not copy that over, but I have a few changes I would make like I showed earlier. Oh, look at that, that's cool. Edit source. Now I can just change this. I think I did 13. Boom, very cool. I did say boom. Sorry, not funny. Okay. And then the last thing I want to do is just add this button. I like how you did this, though. This is really good. Like a selector. I'm going to go here just to make sure I have the right spacing, I think. So this is interesting. So you see what happens when you start developing patterns, though, is you don't want to change. Once you start changing something, you just want to make sure everything's in the right spot. So I think this is a really good design, though. And I changed it slightly, but I think it helps a lot with clarity. There's a good hierarchy here, but you want to make sure the user, again, just knows what they need to do when they get here and not have to guess. I'll probably make. So I'm a little sloppy, I'll admit. Everything's not perfect, but I think you're seeing some of this in action. Yeah, let's do one more, and then I will ask questions. Okay. And everything seems to be working. I apologize. I'm intentionally keeping it here to make sure that there's no issues. Okay. This one's an interesting redesign. It's removing a lot of like these labels, and it's kind of right to the point. I kind of like that. It is more of like an application design in a sense where it's like broken up into 3 sections. And I see some things I want to change though, but the things that I like first are this sort of new layout for this type of content. So giving each crypto a chart could be interesting. Having them in this design. So one of the things I talked about in my data table webinar and things that I always would tell my students is you don't always have to have a data table. Try other designs to see if the content is better suited that way. And I think this person did a really good job of that. What I want to do though is treat this section, I'll just highlight it, this section different than I would treat this section. I might even change it up where this is its own section. That's why I like a challenge. So the first thing I wanted to call out though is some things that may confuse me are the placement of the search within this box would tell me maybe I'm just searching here. If you do a trial and error, like all of us do when we use websites, and I type in Ethereum or whatever, and this content changes, then I will learn that this is the design pattern. But just to make things obvious, I would probably I would get it out of there at least, so that it seems like it's part of the whole application, right? I still like the idea of having a label for the page, so I might do something. I know I'm changing it back to what the other people, all the other examples are, but that's okay. Maybe it's not okay, but it is what I'm doing. Summer school. I wish they were in it. Okay. I don't know if I want to do that. I want to keep the intent of this design here a bit more. So maybe instead of having this section, I can do something a little different where I'll show you. See if I could do it this way. Nope, I gotta do it like this. And there's a top area, just like we had before, to separate this content. And then it would allow these to be their own sections again. Send to back. And then maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe we can even do something like this. It kind of changes it a bit much. Oops, welcome. Thanks. I'm just using it as an excuse because I'm not sure how I want to change the design. It's so loud. Okay. I do want to separate this content. They're not all the same, but maybe what we can do instead of having this brightly colored area is, the common using opacity again to have something here, but maybe not like as bright white as we had it, right? And I want to change this again because I'm kind of liking this text with text and images could be separate idea. And to me, it's just easier to scan, like I said. It's not always going to work. It's not always necessary, but maybe just have a separator. Instead of separating the colorway, we can just have a little rule line. This is really common practice. I think everything looks a lot better just doing that. There's something that I want to call out, which is progressive disclosure, which I talked about before, right? Where maybe I don't need to know all this information. So maybe this is better suited for something on my watch list than it is for all the different types of crypto, but it is interesting. And I don't want to change it right now because it's a good example of showing something. But what I can do is make it maybe easier to scan. So what would I do? Tell her to turn it down. Never mind. I'm almost done. Sorry, everyone. My hand signals aren't working, so I'm just going to let it go. Some basic stuff here. Like what I like is, okay, we're showing proper hierarchy and alignment, but maybe in here, this is our two. There are two, sorry, I got to do, how many levels are there? The text might be a little too thin, a little too light for people to even notice. But I do like the small size. Like this is size 11 and 14. That contrast is good. Maybe you just need to up these labels a little bit. I do, like I said, lists of numbers to be right aligned, but if it's a single number, it's not as bad of an infraction. Is that the right word? I'm not going to be as angry with you in my grading, I guess, is a better way to put it. But like, I like this. See, these are all capital. and 12, and then these are 20. That ratio is really good. Maybe because this is a list of numbers, we can do something where we have it all out here. And try it out, see what we think. Looks a little weird. I don't know if I like it. I'll probably move those these icons to the beginning. But I am slowly right aligning everything. Okay. That looks better to me. I can scan my list. I can scan text. I feel like this is longer and it doesn't need to be. This was, you know, the full height, which I like the design of that, but maybe we need to have one more in here to make sense of it, and we can do this. So there's lots of ways that you can do rule lines. I don't have to get into it, but if you look at graphic design, I mean, just even having a dash above things signifies that it's a new section or a new area, or you can do the full width, which is a lot of people do the full width, but it doesn't have to be. And I think this kind of shows that it does separate it enough. But overall, this is really good. This is fun to look at. Like I said, it might not be as usable in terms of scanning. But what you can do then, which what I like here is applying it to all of these. It looks interesting and it's different, which I like. I would probably do the same thing with the header here. Maybe instead of saying add coin, we can say buy and sell, because buy would be adding, right? Maybe we should get rid of the plus button because you may be selling. Maybe it means plus adding money. I don't know. I think I'm stretching there. Okay. We don't need a huge search bar area, but it needs to be there because you can do predictive text and everything. So I would probably, for both of these, add like a page title. That's fine. Let's follow this purple color. We should also let people know that they're on the home screen. That's like again, a clarity principle. Let's do that with no border. That's an easy way to do it. Just overlay it on top of something, but you're showing that you're there, and it's an easy way to do that. And now if I have this size, which copies coin flip, I can have the secondary navigation for the other pages here without a problem, with having the space for it too. Now I would probably not change the color and not have it compete with the primary color, but okay. So I think I'm running out of time here. I don't want to not leave time for questions, so I'm gonna just quickly review some of these other screens and these other submissions, because I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. And if you want me to, like, this looks cool. This was not a button. I can't help myself, people. I'm sorry. Let's do link. It's easier to look at. Oops, whatever. You see the point, right? But I really appreciate you taking the time to create these designs for us to look at. It's really good. And if you do want to submit something, please message me, reach out to me. That's funky. This is pretty similar to what I started with. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. And if there's any questions, please let me know. And I just wanted to thank everyone for staying and joining me today. I really appreciate it. So, okay. The first question is, would I stick to a vertical navigation bar? Is that, no, I wouldn't. There's no need. It seems like it's a design choice typically of how you want to present your information. I think of it as what kind of content's going to go there. And actually, for this content, it might be better if there wasn't a vertical navigation bar, but a horizontal, and then a vertical if you needed to have a secondary option, right? Secondary nav. So maybe somewhere in there, maybe the trade screen needed more robust interaction. But it's funny, I can really talk about content first design, and that's where you would know what type of, in my opinion, you would understand better what type of navigation you'd need. It would be based on that. Anyone else? I'm gonna keep the awkward silence for about a minute, and unless if anyone has any questions. But I appreciate all of you showing up, and yeah, thank you. Maybe you can hear my daughter watching YouTube because she has headphones on and she can't hear me. That I keep telling her to stop. The headphones obviously aren't connected. I certainly can have more of these. If this is something you all like, please let me know and I can do different ones. Yeah, mobile one would be good. I like that suggestion. Thank you. Definitely. All right, in 2 months, maybe 3 months, I'll do a mobile one. And I know there's only a handful of people here, but if you take a vote, would you want to work on an exercise file of doing mobile UI design? It could even be, so there's a difference between a mobile website, right? Like, and a mobile application design. So I might do a mobile application design, and that would be more interesting to me because there's different design patterns and all that. I have one yes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, if there is no other questions, we can end this. I can even just hang around here if anyone wants to stay behind, just like a virtual online class. Anyone in the class wants to stay behind, you can ask me questions. I don't mind. But I really appreciate you all being here. I hope you learned something. And yeah, thanks. I'm gonna, like I said, just stay here. Okay, and Leon's gonna stop the recording. And thank you for